Why America's Genius Baseball Grenade Killed More Americans Than Germans. 1943, Rochester, New York. Inside an unmarked building surrounded by high fences and guarded entrances, Eastman Kodak, the camera company, was manufacturing something that had nothing to do with photography. The workers called it the Lincoln plant. The neighbors had no idea what happened inside. And the product rolling off the assembly line looked utterly harmless. It was a baseball, except it was not a baseball. It was a hand grenade designed to detonate the instant it hit anything, and the OSS, America's wartime intelligence agency, believed it would revolutionize close combat. The logic seemed bulletproof. Every American man had thrown a baseball thousands of times. Give soldiers a grenade shaped exactly like one, and they would throw it farther, more accurately, and with zero additional training. The Germans would never see it coming. According to ordnance records cited in Small Arms Review, the Army placed a contract for approximately 825,000 units. In practice, only a fraction would ever be manufactured, and fewer still would leave American soil. By the time the war ended, the T-13 Beano grenade had killed more American soldiers than enemy combatants. Its entire production run was ordered destroyed, and the weapon that was supposed to terrify the Germans became one of the most dangerous failures in American ordnance history. This is the story of how a genius idea became a catastrophe. The problem the Beano was designed to solve was real and urgent. Standard American hand grenades in 1943 were heavy, awkward, and dangerously slow. The Mk2 fragmentation grenade, the famous pineapple, weighed 595 grams, over 21 ounces. It was dense, oddly shaped, and required a specific throwing technique that felt nothing like any motion American soldiers knew instinctively. Worse, every grenade in every army's infantry had the same critical flaw. Time delay fuses, pull the pin, release the spoon, and you had 4 to 5 seconds before detonation. That sounds like a safety feature until you consider what happened in combat. German soldiers, particularly veterans on the Eastern Front, had developed a terrifying skill. They caught Allied grenades and threw them back. According to after-action reports from North Africa and Italy, experienced Wehrmacht troops could grab a grenade that landed near them, count the remaining seconds, and hurl it back before it exploded. Some accounts describe German soldiers catching grenades in mid-air. The time delay that protected the thrower also gave the enemy a chance to turn the weapon against him. The British Mills bomb, the No. 36 grenade that had served since 1915, suffered the same vulnerability. Its 4 to 7 second fuse gave ample time for a quick-thinking enemy to return it to sender. The only solution was an impact fuse, a grenade that detonated the instant it struck anything. No delay, no warning, no throwing it back. But impact fuses for hand grenades had defeated engineers for decades. The fundamental problem was nearly impossible to solve cleanly. A grenade sensitive enough to detonate on any impact was also sensitive enough to detonate when dropped, bumped, or jostled during transport. Making it safe to carry meant making it unreliable in combat. Many armies had tried. None had succeeded. The OSS believed American ingenuity would succeed where others had not. The concept has been attributed to Colonel Carl Eifler, commander of OSS Detachment 101 operating in Burma. According to museum records from the JFK Special Warfare Museum, Eifler observed that his men, like virtually all American males of that era, had grown up throwing baseballs. The motion was instinctive, accurate, and powerful. A trained baseball pitcher could throw over 90 miles per hour. Even an average man could throw a baseball 50 to 60 yards with reasonable accuracy. Eifler proposed a simple question. What if the grenade was a baseball? The OSS Research and Development Branch, led by Stanley P. Lovell, seized on the idea. Lovell, whom colleagues nicknamed Professor Moriarty for his inventive approach to clandestine weaponry, had already overseen the development of exploding coal, suicide pills, and numerous other unconventional devices. A baseball grenade fit perfectly into the OSS portfolio of weapons designed to give American forces asymmetric advantages. The specifications were precise. The grenade must match a regulation baseball exactly. Circumference of 9.5 inches, weight of 5.5 ounces, 155 grams. It must detonate on impact with any surface at any angle. It must not detonate during handling, carrying, or the throwing motion. And it must be simple enough for any soldier to use without specialized training. Eastman Kodak received the contract. The camera company had precision manufacturing capabilities, experience with small mechanical components, and crucially, facilities that could be converted to secret military production without attracting attention. The grenades would be marked EKC for Eastman Kodak Company, along with the designations Fuse T5 and Grenade T13 Compe. The engineers faced the impossible problem immediately. A baseball weighing 5.5 ounces could not contain enough explosive to be lethal, plus the fuse mechanism, plus the steel casing needed for fragmentation. Something had to give. The final production weight came in at 12 ounces, 340 grams, more than double the original specification, still lighter than the Mk2 Pineapple, but no longer a true baseball. The familiar throwing motion would still apply, but the weight difference would affect accuracy and range. The explosive charge was 9 ounces of Composition A, an RDX-based compound significantly more powerful than the TNT in standard grenades. The steel body was thin, just 1 mm, designed to fragment uniformly rather than along pre-scored grooves like the Mk2. Testing showed 6.5 fragment hits per square foot at 5 yards, nearly double the fragmentation density of comparable grenades. On paper, it was devastating. The T5 all-ways impact fuse was the heart of the design and the source of its doom. The mechanism was ingenious. The thrower gripped the grenade with 2 fingers on a weighted butterfly cap, mimicking the grip on a baseball's seams. A safety pin prevented premature arming. Upon throwing, the butterfly cap separated from the grenade body, trailing a nylon cord. When the cord reached full extension, it pulled a secondary arming pin from the fuse. The grenade was now live. Any impact would trigger detonation. The OSS specified that the grenade must reliably detonate when dropped from just 18 inches onto sponge rubber. This extreme sensitivity guaranteed it would explode on any surface, soft ground, water, a human body, anything. It also guaranteed catastrophe if anything went wrong during the throwing motion. Testing began at Aberdeen Proving Ground in late 1943, then moved to Fort Benning. Early results were promising enough that on June 2, 1944, just 4 days before D-Day, the Army formalized the large-scale production contract. Manufacturing ramped up at the Lincoln plant. Then people started dying. The T5 fuse was too sensitive. Early production units detonated when dropped from just 6 inches, 1/3 of the design specification. Soldiers at Aberdeen suffered injuries from grenades that went off when accidentally dropped during handling drills. 3 men were slightly wounded before testing protocols were changed to require extreme caution during any movement of live grenades. But the worst flaw was not accidental drops. It was the throwing motion itself. If a soldier failed to grip the butterfly cap correctly, or if his fingers slipped during the throwing motion, the cap could jerk the arming cord prematurely. The grenade would arm while still in the thrower's hand. The follow-through of the throwing motion would then impact the grenade against the thrower's own body. On November 3, 1944, a civilian tester at the proving ground threw a grenade straight up to test the fuse. It armed on the way up. It came down on his head. He died instantly. This incident is documented in testing records cited by Small Arms Review. Now, before we continue with what happened next, if you're finding this interesting, consider subscribing. It takes a second, costs nothing, and helps the channel grow. All right, back to the Beano. Despite the fatality, the Army pushed forward. The war was still raging. The need for an impact grenade remained urgent. Engineers developed improved fuses, designated T5E1 and T5E2, attempting to reduce sensitivity while maintaining reliability. In February 1945, approximately 10,000 grenades were shipped to Europe for field trials. The results were disastrous. According to Army Ordnance records cited in specialist literature, the European field trials involved 2,742 grenades thrown under combat conditions. 10% failed to detonate. 1 in 10 grenades simply did not work. They landed with a thud and sat there, either duds or delayed reactions waiting to kill whoever approached them. The failures clustered around specific conditions: soft ground, mud, snow, water, cold weather. The fuse mechanism was freezing in European winter conditions, preventing the firing pin from striking the detonator with sufficient force. But the duds were not the worst problem. 5 grenades detonated prematurely, not on impact with the ground. During the throwing motion, contemporary testing records and later ordnance summaries report 2 dead and about 44 wounded from these premature detonations during trials. On March 22, 1945, General Joseph Stilwell ordered all testing stopped immediately. 7 days later, on March 29th, production was suspended. On June 15th, with the war in Europe over and Japan's surrender approaching, the order came down to cease all production and destroy existing stock. The Beano was dead. The final accounting is damning. According to research by Dr. John W. Bruner, author of the definitive reference OSS Weapons, the T-13 Beano grenade killed and injured more American personnel during development and testing than it ever harmed enemy combatants. The weapon designed to give American soldiers an advantage instead became a threat to the soldiers carrying it. Anthony D., writing in Small Arms Review, summarized it bluntly. The Beano holds the dubious distinction of having killed and injured more of our own personnel than of the enemy. Some sources claim limited combat use during the Normandy invasion in June 1944. This remains unverified and contradictory in the secondary literature. The specialist ordnance reference Inert Ord notes that it is not clear if the Beano was ever used in combat, although there is unverified information it was issued in limited numbers to troops for the Normandy invasion. No confirmed enemy casualties have been documented in the authoritative sources and specialist literature. The legend of German officers terrified by the baseball grenade appears to be modern embellishment. Extensive research across military archives, declassified documents, and veteran testimonies has produced no evidence of German awareness of or reaction to the Beano. The myth makes for better drama. The truth makes for better history. The Beano failed because impact fuses for hand grenades remain fundamentally dangerous. The requirement that the weapon detonate on any contact conflicts irreconcilably with the requirement that it not detonate during normal handling. Every attempt to increase reliability increased sensitivity. Every attempt to increase safety introduced dud failures. The British solved the problem by not trying to solve it. The Mills bomb kept its time delay fuse throughout the war. British soldiers learned to cook off grenades, holding them for a second or two after releasing the spoon before throwing to reduce the time available for return throws. It was dangerous, but it was predictable. The grenade behaved the same way every time. The German approach was different. The steel hand granite, the stick grenade, used a handle to increase throwing range through leverage rather than changing the grenade's shape. The stick added distance without requiring changes to the fuse mechanism. German soldiers could outrange Allied grenades while maintaining the safety of time delay detonation. The American solution was the cleverest and the most dangerous. Matching human ergonomics to weapon design was genuine innovation. The baseball shape was not stupid. It was ahead of its time. But 1940s engineering could not deliver a fuse mechanism capable of distinguishing between a deliberate throw and an accidental impact. It is worth noting that the OSS produced many successful innovations during the war, from intelligence tradecraft to resistance support operations. The Beano was an exception, not the rule, but it remains a striking example of how even brilliant concepts can fail when technology cannot match ambition. Modern impact grenades exist. They use electronic fuses with accelerometers that detect the specific acceleration profile of a throwing motion versus a drop or bump. The technology that would have made the Beano safe was decades away. Very few T-13 grenades survive. The destruction order was thorough. Specimens can be found at the John F. Kennedy Special Warfare Museum at Fort Liberty, North Carolina, which houses artifacts from the Brunner collection of OSS equipment. The Spyscape Museum in New York City displays a Beano in its World War II espionage exhibits. Private collectors occasionally acquire specimens through dealers, with prices ranging from $2,000 to $3,000 for verified examples. Stanley Lovell, the OSS research director who championed the Beano, wrote about its failure in his 1963 memoir of Spies and Stratagems. He acknowledged that the weapon never achieved its promised potential. The genius of the concept could not overcome the limitations of the technology. The Beano's legacy is a lesson in innovation outpacing engineering capability. The idea was sound. American soldiers really could throw a baseball-shaped object farther and more accurately than an awkward pineapple grenade. Impact detonation really would prevent enemies from throwing grenades back. The problem was that no one in 1944 could build a fuse that would detonate on enemy contact but not on friendly fumbles. A contract for hundreds of thousands of grenades, roughly 10,000 shipped for trials, 2 Americans dead from premature detonations, about 44 wounded. No confirmed enemy casualties documented in the archival record. The harmless American baseball that was supposed to terrify the Germans killed Americans instead. The genius design was too clever for the technology of its era, and the weapon that Eastman Kodak built in secret in an unmarked factory in Rochester, New York, became one of the most dangerous failures of American ordnance development. Sometimes the best ideas are the ones that do not work yet. The Beano was one of them.